Hi, and welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to be presenting the 24 books that I want to read in 2024. I don't know how long I will keep that up, but for now I'm keeping it up, going with the years. This is one of several videos that I am bulk filming for my Vlogmas attempt. So let's get into these categories. Something that I have attempted when selecting these books is to, number one, verge more heavy on nonfiction, and number two, also try to select more genres than just fantasy, because I already read a lot of fantasy and I want to broaden my horizons this year. So I have divided these into various categories, and I'm going to start with my hodgepodge category. These are books that don't necessarily fit another particular genre, although three of them are a similar genre. So first off, we have One Piece by Eiichiro Oda. This will be my foray into actual manga. And I'm nervous, but also excited, because a lot of people, a lot of booktubers who I follow have started this and have really enjoyed it. I think I'll probably say this for a month when I need a lot of pages, because this is probably going to be quick reading. And this is the omnibus version. And yes, I am putting the omnibus on here because obviously I want to get my pages worth. This is volumes 1, 2, and 3. Next, we have another Fredrik Backman book with Anxious People. This, I guess you would call literary fiction. I have heard mixed reviews about this one. I saw it on my shelf. I am also trying to read down books on my shelf. I'm pointing over there like you can see it, the other backdrop on some of my videos. And so I pulled a selection for this list off of that shelf, and this is one of them. Next, we have three that are in the mystery genre. I'm discovering that I really like this genre, and I want to broaden my horizons with this and try a few that I might not have tried otherwise. And this one is probably going to be a stretch, but I've heard really good things about it, and that is Wrong Place, Wrong Time. This was on the Goodreads Choice Awards in 2022. Didn't win, but it was on the finalist list. Then we have one that I think is just going to be a feel-good time, and that is Feel the Burn. I'm going to see if cozy mysteries are for me. And then we have one that Mara, as a mystery expert, has recommended, and that is Magpie Murders by Anthony Horowitz. Thus concludes the hodgepodge genre. Now, I'm going to talk about the only 3 fantasy books on my list. Technically, in my young adult and middle grade category, there might be some that are magical realism and one is fantasy, but these are straight regular fantasy. This one probably could go in the middle grade category, but I put it in this one, and that is A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking by T. Kingfisher. I really like T. Kingfisher's books, and I've heard a lot of good things about this one. Then we have one that I'm a little bit nervous about, but I've read the middle grade series, 2 out of the 3, that are written by Shauna McGuire under a pen name that take place, that are referenced in this book, and that is Middle Game. I have not heard great things about the sequel, but I've heard really great things about this one, so I'm willing to give it a shot. And then we have one that I've heard fantastic things about, and that is Guns of the Dawn by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is like a fantasy take on Pride and Prejudice with obviously like battle and warfare. I'm really excited about this one. And thankfully, it's really floppy. In this next section, I'm going to talk about the middle grade and young adult books that I have. I do not have them organized by genre, but I do have several on here that I got from my own already owned TBR. So we have Strange Worlds Travel Agency by L.D. Lipinski. Briefly, I'll mention this. The reason that I don't have another haul from Owlcrate this year is because their 50% off book sale was books from 2022, which is where I got this one. This was one of their selections for middle grade in 2022. That's the straight fantasy one. This one is magical realism, and that is The Astonishing Color of After by Emily X.R. Pan. I have read Arrow to the Moon by her. It was an extra book in Fairy Loot one month, and I loved it. And I've heard really good things about this one as well. Next, we have a hard-hitting contemporary, and that is Promise Boys by Nick Brooks. This, I believed, was published in 2023, so this year. Next, we have a book where the third book in the series was published this year, and one that I've heard really good things about, and that is Show Me a Sign. This is historical fiction with Def Rep, and I've heard really good things about it, like I already mentioned. Next, we have I'm Not Dying With You Tonight. I actually don't remember why I put this on my list, but it was on my TBR on Storygraph, so I chose it. Great summary, isn't it? Next, we have Internment. This is quasi-fantasy, quasi-contemporary. It's dystopian alternative history. And I believe, okay, in a horrifying near-future United States, 17-year-old Layla Amin and her parents are forced into an internment camp for Muslim American citizens. So I'm really intrigued about this one. Next, we have a graphic novel called Borders. This one is about a family who is part of an indigenous Native American tribe whose homelands were on land that got bisected by the border between Canada and the United States. And they ended up in immigration limbo when they crossed this borders, because when they were asked their citizenship, they said Blackfoot. Depending on when I read this, I might actually use it or refer to it in my human geography class next semester. And then we have Alachua, which again is Native American rep, and I have heard amazing things about this book. Lastly, we have my nonfiction section. I actually had even more nonfiction on this list, but I had to tell myself, get a mix of genres on this list. And so we have one that I'm really, really excited to read, and I might tackle this in January because it's just so timely, and that is A Problem from Hell, America and the Age of Genocide. This is a book written in the early 2000s, very early 2000s, and it asks the question, why, if so many successive American presidents had said never again to genocide, why does it keep happening? Why do we not do something about it? And that is incredibly timely. Hopefully, the conflict going on right now, the genocide, the actual genocide going on right now, will have ended by the time I get to read this book. If it is still going on, that is terrible. Speaking of something terrible, we have a book that I got not this past summer, but the summer before at the really good, really cheap book sale, and that is Separated: Inside an American Tragedy. I know this is going to be hard-hitting and is probably going to get me pretty angry. Then we have a book that I ended up adding to my TBR, I think last year, when I read Nagasaki, about the nuclear bombs dropped on that city and the fallout from it. And that is Fallout by Leslie Ann Bloom, The Hiroshima Cover-Up, and the reporter who revealed it to the world. There's so much that went on about the dropping of these nuclear bombs and the devastation that it wrought that no one was told for decades. I'm really intrigued to read this book. Then we have one that was recommended by Murphy Napier a couple years ago, and that is The Girl with Seven Names, Escape from North Korea. I'm discovering an avid passion for memoirs and hearing people's story, so I'm really excited about this one. Speaking of memoirs, we have another one with When I Was Puerto Rican by Esmeralda Santiago. Again, memoirs are really something that is calling to me right now. Then we have one that I have seen talked about at various times throughout my time watching BookTube, and that is The Five by Haley Rubenhold, The Untold Lives of the Women Killed by Jack the Ripper. I think I like the other cover for this one, but again, I've heard really good things about the writing of this book and how it centers these women's stories and tells the stories of the victims instead of glorifying the perpetrator, the still unknown perpetrator. Then we have The Pain Gap, How Sexism and Racism in Healthcare Kill Women. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. And then the newest release out of any of the books that I have on this list, and one that I am super excited to read and so glad that it made the finalist round in nonfiction in the Goodreads Choice Awards, and that is Black AF History, The Unwhitewashed Story of America. And if you take a look at this cover, you can see little descriptions written about these various founding fathers as if someone annotated that very famous photo. So I am really excited about all of the books that I have chosen for this year's list. I will be reading a minimum of 2 per month. Some of my summer months I might read 3 or maybe 4, so that when we come to the end of the year, I won't necessarily have any on my list, because none of these are going to be on the Goodreads Choice Awards list for next year, and that's usually what the end of my reading entails. Let's see if I can get these displayed. Thanks so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next one.